Oh, it's one of those subterranean bunny pigs. Oh, look at him. Come here, you. Hello and welcome back, my dear students, to a very special lesson of Dragon Age: The Flora and Fauna of Thedas, with me, Professor Absalom. To celebrate this channel getting 10,000 subscribers, today's lesson will be about the adorable Nug. Arguably, the most important creature on the continent of Thedas, of course. But before we start the lesson, I would like to once again thank all of you for getting this channel to 10,000 plus subscribers. As I have said many times before, I am extremely humbled and glad that so many of you enjoy this format of content, and your engagement in the comments to every video always cheers me up. Since there are so many lore YouTubers out there, I'm just a guy that really likes lore, fictional universes, fantasy, sci-fi, you name it. And I found my little niche and style, and I'm just trying to put my own personal spin on the content, and since you guys enjoy it, I'm going to keep doing it for as long as I am able. There is definitely no shortage of ideas for future videos, so a huge thank you to all of you. You are amazing. So let's see how far we can get. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the lesson. Visually resembling something between a mix of a small pig and a rabbit, Nugs are subterranean animals that can be found in the underground of Thedas. Many populate old dwarven tunnels and sections of the deep roads. These hairless and near unto blind creatures with large ears are completely docile and spend most of their lives in or around underground mud pits and pools of water. Their long and large snouts serve as perfect tools for digging in this environment, and has led to the dwarves giving the creatures the nickname Mud Splashers. They also use their long and large whiskers to feel themselves around to compensate for their bad eyesight. Usually of a light pink and white coloration, certain Nugs, however, are known to have other colors, like the brown Nugs, native to the emerald graves in the Dales. Nugs are omnivores and eat almost anything that they can get their hand-like appendages on. Worms and insects from cavern floors are the most common diet, but Nugs are able and willing to eat rocks like limestone and even simple metals if there is a shortage of other food. A Nug's digestive system is extremely potent and enables them to survive by eating a wide variety of things found underground. They reproduce at a rapid pace and can essentially make any cave or tunnel they can find underground their new home and habitat. And although they, in previous ages, almost exclusively lived underground, they are able to survive above as well, as Nugs have become more common on the surface after the years of the Fifth Blight in 931 Dragon. When they are not hunted and eaten by several types of predators underground, like giant spiders and deep stalkers, Nugs are also a favorite source of meat for the dwarves. In fact, the Nug has a very special place within dwarven society and culture that is not only limited to culinary aspects. It is, however, the easiest aspect to start with, so that is what we will do. The first person to discover that Nugs were edible at all was a dwarf named Varen. At the time of this discovery, Varen was a part of the Legion of the Damned, and had been separated from his fellow legionaries in the Deep Roads. After being lost for a week, and hunger started clawing in his belly, Varen had to find food, and caught a Nug, in a desperate act to try and satiate his hunger. A risky move, since he had no idea if the creature was edible at all. It might even have been poisonous. But, as Varen found out, not only was the Nug meat edible, it was delicious. For this discovery, Varen was elevated to the status of Paragon, and although his house, as of modern times, have now fallen, his important discovery would be remembered forever, as the Nug became a central part of Dwarven society. Now, admittedly, it is far more common today to find nugs on the tables of poorer dwarves in the slums of Orzammar, where nugs are the most common source of meat. But the higher castes enjoy nug meat as well, even nobles. The dwarven king Ansgar Aiduken loved nug dishes, and, as one of the Aiduken chefs, Bragan Tolban, relays in his work In Praise of the Humble Nug, the king was especially fond of, quote, nug seared on a hot metal plate and finished in the oven and dressed in a cream sauce flavored with deep mushrooms. As to how nug actually tastes, and the general opinion of nug meat among the dwarves, Tolban writes, quote, I once served a human some nug, and he proclaimed that it was like eating an unholy union of pork and hare. The idea disturbed him so much that he declined to finish his serving and made himself content with some stale bread. Of course, this one goes to show that surfacers, human or otherwise, have tragically unrefined palates. The nug is surely the most delicious animal I have ever tasted. Only a dead man would not salivate at the thought of a tender morsel of roast nug melting in his mouth. End quote. In addition to the elegant dish served to King Ansgar, there are all sorts of ways to cook nug. Nug pancakes and nuggets, to name a few examples. Not only a source of food, but also a potential source of companionship, nugs can also be domesticated and kept as pets. This is not entirely uncommon among dwarves, as their looks and high-pitched squeaks are seen as quite cute and endearing. Also, they are fairly low-maintenance pets, as nugs will survive and feed themselves on just about anything. As mentioned earlier, however, there are other aspects of dwarven culture that involves nugs besides food. One of them is the sport of Nug Racing. In this sport, nugs are bred by specific nug wranglers or breeders to be larger than normal nugs, so that they can carry a dwarf jockey, and without becoming too fat. Several of these nugs will then compete in specially built tunnels, where the scent of food, usually roasted roof beetles, will goad them to run as fast as they can towards the finishing line, while they navigate their surroundings by feeling with their whiskers to compensate for the lack of eyesight. Most nugs have been starved for a day in preparation for the race, to make them run even faster towards the scent of the food, and watching from above the tunnels are the crowds. Nug racing is overall a sport for the lower castes, as most nobles will turn their nose up at a sport like this and rather go watch the gladiatorial provings instead. There are exceptions, however, as wealthy nobles and noble hunters can sometimes be seen in Orzammar's very own Nug Racing Stadium, the Tripcut Track, where wealthy patrons bring in much of the sport's proceeds. It has also become common practice within the sport to paint competing nugs with the emblems of certain caste houses, to signify the benefactor, representative house, or patron of the nug and jockey in question. Many a casteless dwarfs, down on their luck, have tried to make a living as breeders or jockeys. After a racing nug becomes too old to race, or if it refuses to run, or turns into a biter, it is more often than not euthanized and turned into food. A common theme in dwarf poems, as well as nursery rhymes and fairy tales for children, nugs show up in all kinds of literary works in the dwarven world. One of the most fascinating ones was written by the paragon Ebrian in the Exalted Age. Ebrian, a famed author of tales for children, wrote the book Songs That Only Nugs Can Hear, a collection of short stories and poems. One of these, The Nug King, speaks of a nug of royal status, deep underground. From the Nug King and commentary, quote, all praise the Nug King, sate his appetite with cheese. Older is better. A hot debate among Nug admirers is whether the king in Paragon Ebrian's songs was royalty of some kind or merely an especially magnificent specimen of the breed. Every year, scholars, bards, and rodent enthusiasts bring offerings of cheese to the deep roads, hoping for a glimpse of the Nug King, who remains elusive." End quote. Thought to have been merely a children's tale, there have been reports from excavations in the deep roads during recent years that suggest that the altar of offerings have been found, as well as confirmed sightings of the royal Nug himself. These reports have yet to be verified, however, and it is highly unlikely that any of this is true in the slightest. Maybe. Possibly. Anyway, moving on. After the end of the Fifth Blight in 931 Dragon, Nugs have started to appear on the surface far more often and in far greater numbers than in previous ages. It is unknown why this is, and if it has any correlation to the Blight, but it seems like the Nugs can acclimatize quite well to certain places on the surface as long as it is not too hot or cold. The tradition of keeping Nugs as pets have also reached the surface, especially in Orlais, where it has become quite the trend among certain people. Sister Liliana, a previous companion to the hero of Ferelden and later left hand of the Divine, is believed to have started the fad when she was gifted a Nug during her time with the Warden hero and brought it back to Val Royeaux after the Blight as her pet. Since then, it has proven to be a loving companion animal and pet to many Orlesian families, and children especially seem to adore them. This trend have even inspired a new culinary dish served on the surface of Thedas, namely the aptly named Nug Nug, a meat dish made to look like a nug that sticks out its head out of a burrow with two large ears. As you have all seen by this point, Nugs might be small and docile, but their impact on not only nature, but both the underground and surface cultures of Thedas have been huge. And do you know what else is huge, at least in comparison to the Nugs? Well, their cousins, of course, the mighty Nugalopes. But, as interesting as they are, I am afraid that the Nugalopes will have to be the subject of a future lecture. Thank you all for joining me on this very special Flora and Fauna lesson about the lovely subterranean Nugs. Thank you all once again for 10,000 plus subscribers and the constant support. Study hard, feed and walk your pets, and I will see you all on the next Nug Race, lecture. Take care. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and check out the other videos on the channel. More interesting lore videos will be coming in the future, so keep an eye out. Thank you once again, and until next time, have a good one.